It was just another Wednesday, or so I thought. I was sitting in my room staring at my math homework. The big clock on my wall ticked loudly. Tick, tock, tick, tock. I wished it would just stop. I wished I had more time to figure out a tricky problem. I closed my eyes really tight and thought, stop just for a second. When I opened them, something was different. The ticking sound was gone. My cat, Mittens, was in the middle of a big yawn, but her mouth was frozen wide open. A fly was stuck in the air right next to my window. Everything, absolutely everything, had stopped. At first I didn't understand. I thought maybe my clock was broken. I poked the fly, but it was hard like a little statue. I looked outside. A bird was hanging in the sky, its wings spread but not moving. A car on the street was completely still. Even the leaves on the big oak tree weren't rustling. A wave of shock washed over me. It was like the whole world was a photograph and I was the only one who could still move. I whispered the word start, and suddenly the clock began to tick again. Mittens finished her yawn with a squeak, and the fly buzzed away. I had done it. I could stop time. A strange feeling bubbled up inside me. It was a mix of excitement and a little bit of fear. This was a secret, a huge secret that only I knew. What did this mean? I tried it again. Stop, I said, a little louder this time. And just like before, the world froze in place. I walked around my room, touching the still air. It felt thick and quiet. The silence was the strangest part. Usually, there are so many little sounds, but now, there was nothing. It was like being the only person awake in a sleeping world. This power was bigger than anything I could have ever imagined. I knew I had to be careful. Who could I tell? No one would ever believe me. This was my adventure and mine alone. The first thing I thought about was my math homework. With time stopped, I could take as long as I needed. I looked at the problem again. The numbers seemed to sit still on the page, waiting for me. I had all the time in the world to think. This was amazing. I could finish my homework, clean my room, and still have time to play. This superpower was going to change everything. My ordinary Wednesday had just become the most extraordinary day of my life. Once the first shock wore off, my mind started racing with all the fun things I could do. The next day at school during a pop quiz, I felt that familiar panic. I didn't know the answer to the last question, so I whispered, "Stop!" and the classroom froze. My teacher, Mrs. Davis, was stuck with her hand halfway to her glasses. I quietly got up, walked to the bookshelf at the back of the room, and found the answer in our history book. I tiptoed back to my desk, wrote it down, and whispered, "Start," just as the bell rang. No one had a clue. It felt like I had a secret magic trick. The possibilities for fun were endless. During recess, I stopped time right as someone threw a frisbee. I walked over, plucked it out of the air, and put it right in my friend's hands for a perfect catch. Everyone cheered, thinking he was a superstar. I could also give myself extra time to play video games. When my mom told me I had 5 minutes left, I would just stop time and play for what felt like an hour. I could read an entire book in what seemed like a minute. It was like having a secret key that unlocked extra hours in the day, just for me. I also thought about how I could use my power to help people in small ways. One afternoon, I saw a little boy trip and fall. His ice cream cone flew into the air. Before it could hit the ground, I stopped time. I carefully walked over, caught the scoop of strawberry ice cream, and gently placed it back on top of the cone in his hand. Then, I started time again. The little boy looked at his cone, surprised but happy. He never knew how close he came to a sticky disaster. These little secret acts of kindness made me feel warm inside, like a quiet superhero. My creativity soared with this new ability. I started drawing in a whole new way. I would stop time when a bird was taking off, so I could study its wings perfectly. I would freeze the splash of a raindrop in a puddle and sketch every tiny droplet. My art became so detailed and realistic because I could see the world in a way no one else could. I could pause a beautiful sunset and just sit and watch the frozen colors for as long as I wanted. The world became my personal art studio, filled with incredible, unmoving models that were all for me to enjoy and learn from. But having this power wasn't always easy or fun. I soon discovered there were problems, big ones. The first thing I noticed was that when time was stopped, nothing else worked. I tried to watch TV, but the screen was just a frozen picture. I couldn't listen to music because the sound wouldn't travel. I couldn't even get a drink of water because the water wouldn't flow from the tap. The world was paused, and that meant everything in it was paused too. It made my frozen world feel very empty and boring after a while. I was the only thing moving, but I couldn't interact with anything. Another problem was the loneliness. At first it was cool to be the only one moving in a silent world, but after a while it felt strange and isolating. I couldn't talk to my friends or my family. They were all like statues with no expressions and no life in their eyes. I remember stopping time to avoid a scolding from my dad, but when I looked at his frozen, angry face, I just felt sad. I missed the sound of his voice even when he was upset. I realized that time is something we all share, and being outside of it meant I was all alone, which was a very heavy feeling. Things could also go wrong in ways I didn't expect. One day, I stopped time to catch a baseball that was about to break a window. As I ran across the street, I didn't see a bicycle that was also frozen in my path. I tripped over it and scraped my knee badly. Because time was stopped, I couldn't run water over it or get a bandage from the school nurse. I had to wait, in pain, until I could start time again. It taught me that even in a frozen world, I had to be super careful. The world was full of invisible, stopped obstacles that could hurt me if I wasn't paying attention. The biggest worry was about what would happen if I made a huge mistake. What if I stopped time and then couldn't start it again? The thought terrified me. The whole world, with everyone I loved, would be stuck forever as statues. What if I accidentally left something in a dangerous position? Like if I moved a ladder and then started time, causing someone to fall. The responsibility was enormous. Every time I used my power, I had to think about all the things that could possibly go wrong. This amazing gift was starting to feel less like fun and more like a heavy weight on my shoulders. Living with this secret power taught me a very important lesson. Having great power isn't just about doing whatever you want. It's about being responsible. I learned that every action has a consequence, even actions that no one else can see. Just because I could get away with changing things didn't mean I should. I started to think more about how my choices would affect other people, even if they never knew I was the one who made the change. I realized that true strength isn't about having a superpower, but about having the wisdom to know when and how to use it. Or more importantly, when not to use it. I started to appreciate time in a new way. Before, I was always wishing for more of it. I wanted to rush through the boring parts and slow down the fun parts. But now, I saw that every moment was precious. The tick-tock of the clock wasn't an annoying sound anymore. It was the sound of life happening. The laughter of my friends, the chatter at the dinner table, and even the boring school lessons were all part of a flow. Stopping time felt like cheating myself out of real life. I learned to enjoy the journey, not just skip to the good parts. In the end, I decided to use my power very, very rarely. I would only use it for true emergencies, like preventing a bad accident where someone could get seriously hurt. It was no longer a toy for getting good grades or winning games. It was a tool to be protected and respected. I found that living in normal time was actually much more rewarding. The challenges, the surprises, and even the mistakes were what made life interesting. Facing a tough math problem and solving it on my own felt much better than finding the answer in a frozen world. The victory was real. The greatest power I discovered isn't stopping time, it's living in it, fully and completely. It's about sharing moments with people you care about, learning from your struggles, and celebrating your successes. My secret made me understand that time itself is the real magic. It moves forward for all of us, bringing new days, new chances, and new adventures, and that is a much greater superpower than anything I could do on my own. I wouldn't trade the messy, unpredictable, and wonderful flow of time for anything.